What is your fake it till you make it story? I had this file thing in elementary school where you have to put all your worksheets in a folder, and my teacher will check it at the end of the year. Well, I did not do it and convinced her that I handed in, but she lost it. She said she will get back to me, and I am still waiting. Last weekend I was at a wedding dance and they played the Get Up. No one knew the dance, including myself, but liquid encouragement kicked in and I lead the entire wedding dance. 50 plus people, in a dance that I completely made up on the spot. Everyone was so impressed after that I knew all of the moves, that I didn't tell anyone any different. I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I hated school with a passion. I started working retail and found I really liked managing projects and eventually people. I ended up leaving retail for a call center job in a fairly large company. Within 4 years I was running a marketing division. I had no fucking clue what marketing was or anything. I'm just good at getting people to trust me and I'm very creative. I got bored there and somehow got myself into another marketing role at an even bigger company. 5 years later I'm the CMO. I still really don't know shit about marketing. I literally faked it till I made it. I'm very good at what I do. My business started by me just saying yes, I can do that. I can supply that for you. I had no idea that they would be willing to hear me out. 5 years later and I'm now supplying desks and office equipment to over 120 offices in London. You really can go far if you just say yes. I started at a big old multinational in retail as a college dropout. I started at the lowest rung of customer service in a store. Now retail has lots and lots of staff turnover. And a multinational has a shit ton of rules. Or you'd expect them to. Also, I'm not the dumbest around. Never mind the college dropout, that's another story. And well, to be fair, not everyone in retail is super smart. So there was a consistent lack of management. Or they didn't care. And all the rules and regulations had gaps in themacy, so people start asking questions. How do I solve this? What should I do next? Etc. Nobody had an answer to these questions. So I started answering them using common sense or what I'd think should work. Just filling the gaps, which probably made me look a lot smarter than I am, as you're just faking that I knew what I was doing. So I started climbing the ladders and I am now the senior finance and operations director for a store with a gross turnover of over 160 million euro. However, cracks are starting to show. The company got a lot more serious and I'm surrounded by smart people with high degrees where I can't bluff my way through problems and meetings as easily. So, I'm thinking of taking a step back and relaxing a bit more on lower position. I was a lot happier then and had way less stress and way less hours. TLDR. Faking works until it doesn't. During college, I worked part-time as a deli clerk in a grocery store. I had zero experience with deli items, didn't know head cheese from salami, or provolone from Munster. So, I'd explain to customers that I was new and ask them to point to items in the case that they wanted, and what the sign indicated for the price per pound. They always seemed happy to help out, especially when I gave them free samples from the slicing machine. I was desperate for a job several years back, so I wrote up this resume that was utter horseshit on a whim. Granted, some of it was legit, but a good 80% was me bullshitting. Amazingly enough, I got a call for an interview and by some miracle they ended up hiring me, and I worked for the place for 7 years before something I was actually qualified for opened up at another workplace. That bullshit resume saved me from ruin though, so I always will look back in that crazy situation fondly. My piece of shit druggy brother-in-law used to lie and said he had heavy equipment operator experience. He'd get the job and get fired within a day or two, but pick up something small. did that 15 or 20 times and kept moving around until he learned enough to not get fired. I taught a class on a specialty software program. This year I was learning the software myself and I was literally one class ahead of the people I was teaching. Sleeping. I fake trying to do it till I'm surprised by the real thing. Social anxiety. I was always the quiet guy up until a few years ago. I decided I was tired of not having friends and I started faking confidence and talking to everyone. In the beginning I was dying inside and felt like I was walking on glass. Now I don't know when to shut up and can talk to just about anyone. Graduate school, doctoral program. Anyone who has endured this pain understands that the transition from undergraduate to graduate training can be very much intimidating and elicit imposter syndrome. Everyone in my cohort was faking it till making it. But in that process of stress and comps and writing and research and teaching and learning, you eventually make it. But it's a bitch getting there. And every day beforehand felt pretty fake. Just gotta get amped up. Trust in your self-efficacy. Keep grinding and faking it until you come out on the other side all the wiser for it. The competency will come. The process will test you though. Was told that in order to get sober I needed to find a church and start going regularly. I picked a church, went to every service, sat in the front row and sang along with all the hymns. After about 2 months of regular attendance, the priest asked if I wanted to take over the Sunday school class. I politely declined. I managed to convince a priest I was Christian enough to take over a Sunday school class, but it was still more than another year until I could stay sober. Without church. Recovering from some mental health issues. I had a really hard time around people, constantly questioning myself and their behavior towards me, but I just forced myself to believe the best and kept pressing on. I found friends that way and great stories. Honestly, I felt like this for most of my jobs in the IT industry. I work on Cisco voice systems and it always seemed like I was getting jobs that were just a bit higher technical level than I was at. So I was constantly working hard to learn what I didn't know to get to the level that I was supposed to be at. Or they would have one of the Cisco voice platforms that I wasn't familiar with but expected me to troubleshoot and work on, such as my current job, which has UCCE call center stuff. And I'd never worked on anything but UCCX, which is the very slimmed down version of UCCE and is very different. So now I'm working hard to learn UCCE, but I'm always feeling like at any time they'll realize they can get someone better and replace me. Working. I can totally make results, but all the time while I'm at it, it is a faking in action. My entire life. I started a business when I was 17. That was 12 years ago. In another city. Still going and have progressed and improved. Not even going to lie. I used to trace other people's art so often as a young artist. Like 8 to 10. But now, I have that guidance of technique with me when I create my own pieces. I enlisted in the army in my late 20s, and after a couple of deployments to Iraq in my 30s I decided to make the army my career. I wasn't particularly gung-ho. I know that's the Marines, but a lot of people wouldn't get it if I said I wasn't hoo-ah. But I liked being in the army and I liked the people I worked with. And people liked to work with me. Eventually I got wounded and it was one of those Forrest Gump type things where I was discharged, but not really messed up. So here I was in my mid-30s with no real civilian work experience going out into the real world. At the exact same moment that the economy took a nosedive. I ended up using the GI Bill to go to college, and thanks to a couple of semesters of community college I took before enlisting and taking a full load of classes every semester, including a full load in the summers, I managed to get my BS in Information Science and Technology with a minor in business in 3 years. After school I hustled my ass off and took one temp job after another so I could get some experience working in corporate environments. Somehow, and I'm not sure exactly how it went down, I managed to land one-year contracts with companies that pretty much everyone has heard of. I started out doing basic data entry, which then led to data analysis, which eventually led me to my career in payroll processing. All of this from some high school dropout Gen X slacker who spent most of his 20s working dead-end jobs, singing in a punk band and smoking weed every day. When I went to college after the army, I had no idea how to do shit with computers. Like, I could surf the internet and play video games, but that was it. And not counting the army, my most impressive job title was assistant third shift stock manager at a grocery store. I managed to fake it until I made it to the point that now companies are calling me to lure me away from my current gig so I can head up their payroll department. Went from hospitality at a casino to an engineer by faking my resume. I had general electrical knowledge, but that's it. Within 6 months got promoted and left to a higher paying job where I constantly feel like the least experienced engineer telling my engineers how to do their job. Granted, I studied a lot, but my old chief engineer said I was like Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can. Edit. Since people got upset about me using the title engineer, I'll clarify. I repaired heavy machinery, and agree technician would have been a better title. But engineer was the title I was given when I started there. So that's the title I used. I was on the stage for a hypnotist and didn't get hypnotized, but I decided to go along with it. Currently living in a third world country after being in first world my entire life. I'm 16. Gonna fake that I'm happy here till we make it, fellas. I have a gov IT job and I have no college experience. Had never used a Windows computer before I was hired, and didn't know what a server was. I've picked it up over the last 4 years. The entirety of my professional career. You just gestured to all of me. I like the question, but I don't have an answer, so here, take my upvote. When I was 10, I lost my right leg in a tricycle accident. I spent 1 year limping with a crutch. Doctors said my leg will never grow back, so I decided, I'm just going to assume I have 2 legs and take it till I make it. I admit, I fell like, every day, flat on my face. Few visits to her, but my leg eventually just flew back. Honestly, being happy and social. Going into high school I was in a super bad place. I was treated very poorly throughout elementary and middle school, and essentially was a social outcast for a long while. In order to make friends, I faked being a social and outgoing person since I had a fresh start with different people. Now that's actually the way I am. Very social and friendly, and willing to talk to anyone. It's tricky to come out of that shell, but you get there eventually. My job, every day.